You know the feeling. You've got something important to do. You sit down to do it, and somehow an hour passes and you've barely started. It's not laziness. That's what happens when a task is too big for your brain to engage with it cleanly. Peter Hollins has a fix for that. It's called the 10-minute rule, and it's from his book, Self-Discipline on Autopilot. The premise is this: nothing on your to-do list should take longer than 10 minutes. If it does, you break it down until it doesn't, or you delegate it, or you cut it. Simple rule, but the reason it works is worth understanding, and that's what we're covering today. The 10-minute rule is both a productivity trick and a way to push through procrastination. It's easy. No item on your to-do list should take longer than 10 minutes. If a task does take longer than 10 minutes to do, then break it up into smaller tasks until it doesn't. That, or delegate the task to someone else, or delete it entirely. By doing so, you instantly bring more focus, speed, and efficiency to your day. You can beat procrastination and also strengthen your self-discipline. Everyone can manage to do something for just 10 minutes at a time, right? It may seem crazy to suggest that you could do everything you need to do this way, but you can. To use this rule, try to remember your options. Delegate. To get more time in your day, better manage your energy, and save it for what matters, delegate. Good boundaries mean you don't say yes to everything, but only to those things that are essential to your most important goal that day. If it's not important, either ditch it entirely or get someone else to do it. This may mean having to let a few things slide or be done less than perfectly, but if they're not your priorities, so what? You could delegate down, but don't forget that you can also delegate up, i.e., to superiors, supervisors, or people who actually know better than you. In other words, ask for help. Start with the low-hanging fruit. Yes, you should have big, hairy, audacious goals, and yes, you should be working hard. But sometimes if you're having trouble getting started, you can get the ball rolling by starting with the easiest task first. Naturally, you want to avoid endless research or planning, but begin any task with those quick gains that can be made without too much effort. This will give you confidence to keep going. Sometimes your easiest and most satisfying task might simply be breaking things down into smaller tasks, which is intrinsically rewarding because it makes you feel like the project is manageable. Use a timer. Use your phone to set a 10-minute timer, and when it goes off, stop what you're doing. You may wonder, what if I'm genuinely not finished with my task when the timer goes off? Well, there are a few things you can do. Notice exactly what task runs over time, and notice if it repeatedly happens. Ask if you need to plan this task better next time, or if the chunks need to be broken down further. Look at the task again and see if you really need to continue. Consider if the rest of the task can be delegated or assigned for later. This technique will, in time, teach you to cut to the chase quickly. If you are routinely not getting to the crux of each task within 10 minutes, something is wrong. Either you're planning poorly or you're wasting time with things that are actually not necessary. The human attention span doesn't follow along neatly with the hours and half hours on a clock. 10 minutes is actually plenty of time if you're consciously brining your full, fresh attention. Keep tabs on the bigger picture. Of course, nobody writes an essay or builds a house in 10 minutes, but the technique can still be used for bigger tasks in that it will 1. Help you overcome procrastination, and 2. Get you thinking clearly about the stages and steps of the process. When you're unclear about what you're doing, you can waste enormous amounts of time. The clock may show that an hour has passed, but in reality, you've only mustered a few minutes of quality time during that period. set the timer, and work on the small chunk of the bigger task. Then when the timer goes off, pause and see where you are. You may be very surprised at just how much work can be accomplished in 10 minutes, and anyone can manage 10 minutes of solid effort, even on a task they've been avoiding. Decide then if you want to set the timer for another 10 minutes. You don't have to, but if you do, commit to that full 10 minutes. Absolutely no excuses. This technique works for procrastination because it eases some of the main causes of procrastination. 1, we're overwhelmed with the size of the task. But if we do just 10 minutes, we don't focus on the enormity of an intimidating task, just on the next 10 minutes. 2, we've planned poorly and don't actually know the smaller steps in front of us or the broader outline of the task we're doing. Lack of clarity can lead to lack of motivation, and you may feel aimless and irritated. Having to break the task down into logical 10-minute chunks forces you to remove this obstacle and think strategically. Focus on output and not outcome. If you sit down to study a 10,000-word chapter in your textbook and you focus on that enormous sounding number, 10,000, then it's going to feel like heavy lifting. Focusing on the outcome almost always means looking far over the horizon at a goal that's really, really far away. But if you focus on the output, you pull your attention back to the only thing you have control over, your attention right now in this moment. Just read one paragraph. Try to understand that paragraph. Make some notes. Take a breath, go in again and read the next paragraph. One way to think of this rule is even simpler still, just start. Very often, the most difficult part of a project is simply summoning up the momentum to get going. Once you've begun, you start to see what the next step is and the next. Before you know it, a half hour has passed and you've covered enormous ground. In just the same way as your brain will trick you into thinking you're finished when you're only 40% finished, your brain will also convince you that the task ahead is very difficult, very boring, too complicated, totally unmanageable, etc. When you just leap in and start, you short-circuit these excuses and begin before you can talk yourself out of it. Pick a task you've been putting off and identify the first 10-minute task you'll have to do to get the ball rolling. Without thinking too hard about it, set the timer and just start with it. 10 minutes may not seem like much, but then again, an hour is only a few 10-minute chunks, one after the other. The most complicated task in the world is similarly made up of very simple ones. Even if you can only eke out 10 minutes on a project before you stop again, well, that's great. The next time you start, the task is that little bit smaller than it was. One final point to remember about this rule is that breaking things into chunks is intrinsically rewarding. After each baby step, have a mini celebration. Tell your brain this is a reward so that it releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter that teaches you this is good. The 10-minute rule works because it solves the actual problem, which isn't motivation, it's clarity. When you don't know what the next 10 minutes should look like, no amount of willpower moves you. Break it down, set the timer, start before you're ready. And Peter makes a point worth keeping. Each completed chunk releases a small hit of dopamine. Your brain logs it as evidence you're capable. Over time, that's how discipline becomes automatic. Self-discipline on autopilot is linked in the description. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.